Can General Motors build a rear-wheel drive sport compact car you guys would actually want to drive, let alone buy? And what should they name it? We've got Alex Nunez from RoadandTrack.com on the After Drive couch. And today on After Drive, we are talking about the best Chevrolet product rumor in decades. That's right now on After Drive. So I just want to start out by acknowledging the commenters that after last week's show when we were talking about the BMW E30 M3's S14 four-cylinder reminded me about a naturally aspirated 4 with a very similar power output in production around the same time, and that was the 2.3-liter Oldsmobile Quad 4. And if you're a fan of Quirk Pod engines, you remember the Quad 4. It produced 180 horsepower, double overhead cam 4 with a very rare W41 version that produced 190. The Olds Cutlass Calais Quad 442 did 0 to 60 in 7 seconds, which back then was pretty good. It was quicker than a Z28 Camaro. And it also raced, and it won the IMSA Firehawk Endurance Series and IMSA International Sedan Series in 1991. So if you want to know more, head over to Quad4Forums.com. I'll put the link in the basement down below this. Also, the Quad 4 powered the GM Aerotech cars, like this one, the concept cars. This one set a closed course speed record at the hands of A.J. Foyt of 267.88 miles per hour with a heavily turbocharged Quad 4. Alex Nunez from RoadandTrack.com. You remember the Quad 4?
Yeah, I can't say I had thought about it until about 10 seconds ago. Although
neither did I, and that's why somebody had to remind me.
I don't believe those are the stock headers.
First of all, not stock headers.
Right,
no.
not stock. It's funny that you bring it up though. I was at a cruise night a couple weeks ago. I brought my kids to a Saturday night thing at one of these drive-ins, and somebody had a Calais, a Quad 4 Calais, not the rad Quad 442.
Right.
Which,
the W41 package.
Well, I mean, and that's really rare.
Yeah.
What was the number?
That's the thing. I mean, of that, the Calais with the W41, there were only 209 maybe made.
Right. So what are there, 300 Enzos?
They're more Enzo. Could you imagine the Enzo's more rare?
You have,
that's more rare than an Enzo?
It probably is, because a lot of these are probably dust anyway, except for the ones, most of the surviving ones are probably in Michigan. You won't see them at all, and then you go to the Woodward Dream Cruise, and you'll see all of them.
Right,
in a 24-hour span.
Right, everything is in Michigan
Everything
somewhere.
is in Michigan. I mean, because you know how it is when you get off the plane, and all of a sudden you drive out of the rent-a-car thing, and the last time I went, I saw 2 Thunderbird Super Coupes in the space of 5 minutes. I hadn't seen one, I think, in probably 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So I'm sure that's where all of these are hiding.
Well, and it's interesting. The cool thing about the Quad 4 is that a lot of hot rodders started getting into them because, other than the fact that they're nerds, if you look over here at the cams, it looks like an Offenhauser a little bit. If you look at an old Offenhauser racing engine, so it's got a lot of kind of nerd engine cred too.
Right, and hot rodders don't care about the NVH issues and everything that plagued these cars when they came out.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They used to rattle, and eventually they added a bounce shaft or something later on.
And then eventually they fixed it, and then they just cut it off.
Yeah.
Which was classic GM methodology of the era.
Right, and kind of interesting that in the old days the brands used to make their own engines, so that kind of went away in the 70s, and then in the 80s to have Oldsmobile build its own engine like this, and then end up in the Chevy Beretta,
right?
And what else was this? It was the Chevy
Beretta,
the Pontiac Grand Am.
Yeah, I think
it was in.
I think it was in the Grand Am.
Yeah, and the Calais and the Achieva.
Oh, the Achieva.
The Achieva.
I just saw a nice
for
Achieva on 57th Street the other day. How do you bring that up?
Anyway, so Chevy.
Yeah, Chevy. Sort of big news.
So to recap, a couple of years ago in Detroit, GM showed up with 2 concept cars, right? So one of them was this is it, the true 140R concept, and that sort of looked a lot like a Mitsubishi Eclipse,
very
obviously.
much like it.
But then they had the 130, the Code 130R.
Right. I mean, the names are terrible for both of them.
I know they're very sort of that whatever they think the youth-oriented culture is going to be.
Because that works out so well.
Because that's worked out so well in the past for them, right? But so as it turns out, the car that is the one that shows the most promise for what they are talking about building, what the rumor that we're talking about today is, that they're going to build a sport compact car.
Right. I mean, because listen, Mark Royce has been on record multiple times. He loves this car.
Right.
And this is actually in
GM
person.
boss, by the way.
Yes, right.
Or,
Chevy boss.
Chevy boss. Sorry.
So, and the thing is, I remember when these like photos came out, I was like, oh, it's kind of lame. But the thing is, this car in person is great. It's a really good size, got a great stance and everything. And so the rumor, as you know, I think Jalopnik reported, and I have some other stuff, you know, from I think probably a similar source, is. So right now in Australia, the rear-wheel drive Zeta sedans, this is the last generation of those.
Right.
So after this 3-year run, and we're getting that as the Chevy SS, and HSV is unveiling their new like super performance versions tomorrow.
Yeah.
Including the wagon and the Ute and everything. But
so those are, by the way, that's the platform that the Camaro's on right now. That's the larger,
right.
the sort of larger rear drive platform.
Right. Which Australia developed. You know?
Yes.
This is an Australian thing. This is once again where Australia sort of saves America's bacon in terms of rear-wheel drive cars, because it's such an ingrained part of the culture there. So the issue right now, and this was a great concept from a couple of years ago, with basically a 2-door Holden Commodore, concept.
Yeah, that's the same. That's that platform.
This is right. This is Zeta. This is the old body style. I love that car.
By the way, you know, if you go back a little bit, to go back 2 more, we're going to talk about this more in terms of the styling of it as an influence of what GM might be building.
Right. So,
but keep going on the.
Right. So the problem is, after this run of Zeta sedans, the Commodore will become a global front drive car, like a lacrosse platform or whatever the current version of that is at the time.
Right.
And that, from the sources that I've talked to, has the guys in Holden
They're pissed.
They are unhappy because Holden wants an Australian car,
right.
And that is Australian car is code for rear-wheel drive.
Right, exactly.
And so
Australian car means muscle car lineage, right? I mean that goes going back to. I mean Australia developed this kind of parallel muscle car universe that to America's.
Right, exactly. I mean you had
and they kept it where we sort of threw it in the garbage.
No, we threw it all out. I mean after the '80s when we got rid of all those mid-size rear-wheel drive. Platforms like the Monte Carlo and the Regal and everything, that was pretty much it. You know, the only thing that survived was the Mustang. Right. Because at GM, rear-wheel drive went away if it wasn't a Corvette or a Camaro, and then, and then the F-bodies went away for a period of time. Yeah. You had nothing. So the Australians, they want a rear-wheel drive car.
Yeah.
So my understanding is this, is that they went pretty far in this process in terms of from what I understand, there are clays of this proposed car, which they want to call Tirana. They want to resurrect that name. The last time that
appeared, do you think, and it might look like this?
No, I think what I heard is that it is going to be a 3-box coupe, which speaks very closely to that 130R, with some Camaro-style attitude to it. So it sounds like it's actually going to be not as conservative looking as the 130R, or at least what has been pitched by Holden to the mothership, to try and get this car.
Right.
And I think as part of that pitch, they're saying, why don't you guys greenlight? If you greenlight this, you could sell this in the U.S. as a Chevelle, And I think so. I think that's where the Chevelle rumor comes from.
So if you go through a couple, so the Chevelle, The thing is that the car will be small, and this is what a Chevelle looked like. A big car, and this is going to be a sport compact. So this is going to go up against the Subaru BRZ, theoretically.
Right.
They need a name, right? So we went to Facebook and asked our Facebook audience what they thought we should call it, and whether they would buy it, because don't forget, GM is not known for its sport compacts. I mean, it's not exactly... Have they done a sport compact? Yes, they actually did, if you consider the Cosworth Vega. So I wrote a piece in Jalopnik about why they should call it the Vega. And basically, it's because then they could work with Cosworth and do like a Cosworth tuned version and do a new Cosworth Vega. And I think that would be freaking awesome.
I don't know about calling it the Vega. I think there's way too much baggage there. I mean, and seriously, if not for Mad Men 2 weeks ago, are we even bringing up Vega in this conversation?
Talking about Vega?
We would not have thought of it. Just like I would not have thought of the Calais 442 had you not brought it up at the beginning of the show.
Right. But I think that's kind of the point I was making, is that nobody remembers what a piece of crap the Vega was. But it's a good name, and Cosworth Vega kind of has a little ring to it. This, had basically the aluminum block from the Vega with the Cosworth twin cam heads on it, and was kind of neutered by the EPA and the emissions control people. And so they owe us this car. They owe us like a good one. I mean, this was pretty good.
They owe us a good sport compact.
They owe us a good
don't
sport
necessarily owe us a Cosworth Vega. I mean,
I think they owe us a damn Cosworth
I could totally
Vega.
see them going with something like Chevelle, because can you imagine in the Rensen all of the chest bumps and everything, if that ever got approved, and all of the marketing people just having a field day thinking of how they're going to advertise this.
Right.
The other thing you could call it, in my opinion, is Monte Carlo, because you get back to a real coupe, a real Monte Carlo, not the front wheel drive.
You're talking about the old Landau roof with the giant.
I'm talking about Monte Carlo SS.
Oh, right, the Monte SS.
I'm talking about that sort of generation where, again, you had it was a three-box traditional coupe, which is what that 130R is, and which is what the rumor has it that the Australian design also mimics. So, and Monte Carlo.
That's interesting.
There is good equity there, and it's still in recent memory. I mean, and maybe you could do an
trust
Aero
me,
coupe.
I remember the Monte Carlo very, very fondly. Let me tell you something about the Monte Carlo. This is a car that I remember like I remember my own name from way back. Let me tell you something. All right, so we went to Facebook and Twitter and asked you guys what you thought the name should be, right? So, and whether you would buy it, because that's another thing. GM, would you buy a GM Sport Compact? Despite the fact that actually cars like the Cobalt SS weren't really as bad as people remember them.
Right. And, and GM does make good compacts now. I mean, the Sonic is really good.
And the Ecotec is a pretty good engine. Maybe a next generation Ecotec could actually be pretty good.
Right.
So on Twitter, Austin _Tatius, said, I'd consider it, no idea whether it should be a rebirth like the Chevelle or the Vega, or a totally new car, though, as long as it's not a Sonic. That's it. Sleevy B says, call it a Nova if they're boring, Bel Air if they're ballsy. Okay. Corvair if they're being ironic. So you could call it a Corvair, unsafe at any speed.
Yeah,
I don't think Corvair has quite the equity.
It doesn't. I mean, Corvair is a cool car and obviously has its own following.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that name really works.
That's true. Corvair would work now. Rear engine, though. I mean, if they did a rear engine 911 fighter.
Right,
exactly,
right. That's coming soon. Right.
So Tokyo Car Guy says on Twitter, I just can't think of a way they can pull this off. And this is really the thing we're not sure about. Whether they can pull this off, they don't have the proper base or experience in that segment. And then Ainsand says, for us Antipodeans, meaning the Antipodes, which is kind of a cool reference, that's the other side of the world. That means Australia, I would imagine. For us Antipodeans, it has to be the Tirana.
Right, it has to be the
So
Tirana.
It has to be the Tirana
For Australia,
in Australia.
It has to be
right.
the Tirana.
Exactly.
It's if the car gets made, it's the whole debate is what they're going to call is what they would call it here.
Right, exactly. So on Facebook, some of the commenters added a little more because you could comment in
more space.
More space, right? Exactly. I'd buy a sub 200 horsepower, sub 2,700 pound, sub 22K rear-wheel drive coupe with 12 to 13 cubic feet of trunk space, which the BRZ does not have. So that's something that if Chevy did the Code 130R style, they would have more trunk space. That's the major factor keeping me from considering the BRZ as a daily driver and only car for this guy. It doesn't have to be a sports car, just rear-wheel drive and manual, says Mark Rothenberg. As far as names go, a BRZ competitor, who cares what it's called, just build it, says Jonathan Arena says. And Sean Costello has the best comment ever about this. He said, call it Chevrolet the Chevrolet.
Wow.
To use Ferrari's naming scheme.
Why don't we just call it Chevy 3?
Right. That's true. Yeah, there was Chevy 2. Now,
right. What
was Chevy 1, by the way? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
What did they consider to be Chevy 1? Bel Air? I don't know. And then Chevy 2 was the Nova.
Right.
Which is another name that a lot of people have been saying they should use. So the problem is that's like continuing to go back to their heritage to name a car that's nothing like any car they've ever built. So
I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I hate when these automakers don't reach back and use heritage names that have cachet to them. I mean, look at Lincoln has completely lost the plot in terms of naming.
Bollocksed up their entire
totally
line.
messed it up. But Chevy has good names that it can still pull from. Or they, like with Sonic, they can go and just create something totally new and try and give the car a new identity, which would be fine. It is a new car. I mean, I think it would be, if this ever came to fruition, I think it could be a great car because Alpha is good. I mean, look at the ATS. I mean, the chassis tuning on the ATS.
We have an ATS in here somewhere. So actually, there you go. The chassis tuning is the best thing about this car.
It's an amazingly good car.
Yeah.
I mean, the ATS is pretty spectacular to drive. I mean, the issues that people have with it are around the user interface inside the car, which, whatever. I mean, you either get used to it or you don't. I mean, if you're reviewing a car, you have it for a week, it's not the same as living with the car.
Yes.
So you probably get used to it like you get used to everything else. But one thing is just undeniable is that chassis is awesome. That means the new Camaro should be really good too.
Yeah. Well, what about size, right? So they're actually making the new Camaro smaller to fit on this platform. So this is the Alpha platform they call it? Is that the this is
it's Alpha, yeah.
It's Alpha, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're making the Camaro smaller to fit on this chassis. So the next sport compact car is going to have to be even smaller than that. So
not necessarily though. I mean, look at how big compact cars are. Look at how big the BMW 1 Series M is.
That's very true.
That is a big car considered to be a compact. Put a 1M next to an old M6, an OG M6, like 635, that kind of. The 1M is in like this gigantic thing next to it.
That's very true.
So the notion of compact, it's first of all, these size classifications are all based on EPA interior volume.
Right.
Anyway, so they'll call it a sport compact. It's not going to be a small car. Just like the Mustang is supposed to be like a pony car. Small. It's not a small car.
Right.
The BRZ is not really a small car.
Well, in terms of competition, though, so I mean, or in terms of their own line. So if the Camaro is small, this car can't be a similar size as the Camaro, though. So then you're looking at making it even smaller than that, and that's why on Jalopnik they were talking about that Alpha. They might not be able to use the Alpha platform because that would be too big.
Well, they're not going to develop another rear-wheel drive platform.
Right, so it has to come out of the Australian rear drive platform that we've been talking about.
Right. They'll develop the whole car.
Yeah.
And they'll do it right. I mean, they already do it right. So.
Well, what's the deal with Australia, right? So how did Australia end up being a muscle car culture? Is it just the same thing with America, that they just have a ton of space?
Well, it's a ton of space. I've never been to Australia. It's one of these places that I really want to go to and drive in.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are a lot of parallels there. There's this. You have an expansive. I mean, it's an entire continent, obviously. There is this sort of rugged individualism type thing going on. Yeah. And there's this sense of freedom and the being able to go anywhere, and that all has direct parallels to the U.S. where, I mean, you have the romantic vision, which still exists, is that, on any given day, you can just get in your car and drive away and go any place.
Right.
And you can sort of live that fantasy. And I think Australia, it's sort of a similar thing. And the tastes were similar. V8, muscle, rear-wheel drive. I mean, these Falcons and these various Commodores and everything, these are really cool cars.
Yeah, and it's funny how we kind of abandoned that for the front-wheel drive. And part of it was obviously for the economy reason.
Right.
But part of it was that we kind of stopped giving a crap. I mean, it's sort of about...
Right, and keep in mind, the modern rear-wheel drive, these Australian rear-wheel drive cars, they're not cheap cars in Australia.
That's true. That's true, right. So it's not like they have economy rear drive cars.
Right. I mean, it's either the good V6 or a V8.
Right.
Just like here, I mean, the SS, which we have now, that's pretty much a premium model only.
Yeah.
It's a single trim level.
Right. So thank you, Australia, for keeping the dream alive for America. When are we going to see something like this come out? I mean, 15, we looking at 15?
I mean, if they approve it.
Well, that's the thing, right? So Mark Royce was recently on Twitter talking about, they want your help, they want our help.
But Royce wants this car.
But yes.
But it's all about business case, I think, at this point.
I guess so, and I think maybe they're waiting on the BRZ and the FRS to see how well they do.
Well, I mean, look, they're not waiting. They're going to make the convertible version of the FRS.
Yeah.
I mean, that show car was a finished product with better leather.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're not running away from that. And I mean, Toyota maybe has a different reason for this, because Toyota was so beiged out for so long that the FRS, or GT86 as it's called everywhere else, is really important in terms of sort of resetting something at Toyota, like reminding that performance is not just the unobtainable Lexus LFA.
And nobody needs that halo more than Chevy right now, I think.
Right. Well, Chevy has the Corvette, which.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's
C7.
true.
I mean, it's an all-new car.
It's the accessible supercar. I mean, if you want to look at the Z06,
it's going to be really good.
ZR1. This car has to be freaking awesome, or they are going to be screwed, because they really need the bragging rights at this level, at this sort of lower.
Right. And this gives them something that Ford doesn't have.
That's true. That is very true. Alex Nunez,
Thanks, Mike.
roadandtrack.com. Good site, man. You guys, so wait a minute. So you guys, Road and Track just did a major redesign for the magazine.
Right.
And you're doing same kind of thing with the
Right.
with
So
the
the
website.
magazine relaunched with the May issue. June issue is out now with
Yeah.
the Magnus Walker Porsche on the cover.
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
very
big
cool.
Porsche issue for 91150. And the website relaunched in conjunction. I mean, the website relaunched back in December.
Right.
With a full redesign, and then we had an updated redesign where we took the new logo and everything. We just did another update to the homepage to hopefully make it even more readable and better looking for people that come visit. So
Cool.
we encourage everybody to come visit roadandtrack.com.
Roadandtrack.com. It looks awesome. Cool.
Thanks,
man. So that's it. After Drive today. What do you guys think? Would you drive a Chevy Sport Compact car? If it's great, of course you will. But what would you name it? Let us know. There's a really good thread up on Facebook right now. I'm going to leave you the link downstairs also. www.slashdrive.tv, @Drive on Twitter, and facebook.com/DriveTV. I will see you guys next week.